So President Trump promised before the election that he could end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. That obviously has not happened. Now his administration says they're aiming to stop the conflict within 100 days. However, Trump hasn't provided clear details on how he plans to achieve this. He says secrecy is necessary to protect his negotiating position, but critics argue that he just doesn't have a plan. Trump has suggested using economic pressure like sanctions and tariffs to push Russia into negotiations. However, this approach might not work because Russia has had sanctions placed on them before and still has not come to the negotiating table. Trump has also hinted at being open to granting Russia some Ukrainian territorial concessions, which has faced strong opposition from Ukraine as well as European leaders. There's obviously the challenge of balancing Putin's and Zelensky's very different demands as well. It really boils down to Zelensky wanting Russia completely out of Ukraine and Putin wanting Ukraine to become part of Russia. There really isn't a lot of wiggle room there. But regardless of what either side wants, Trump's focus is on achieving a ceasefire within the first 100 days, no matter what the outcome is. And what's unclear is what makes him actually think a ceasefire will hold if one is actually negotiated, because not a single previous ceasefire agreed to by Russia and Ukraine has held since Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. There have been 29 ceasefires committed to by Russia and Ukraine in some way, shape, or form, 3 of which were formal agreements, including the Minsk Protocol in 2014, Minsk II in 2015, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe ceasefire in 2020. There were also 26 informal ceasefires, and these included the Harvest ceasefires, or the first week of schools ceasefires that took place. Now, the 2020 ceasefire was the longest, lasting between 7 and 10 months, depending on whom you ask, as to when Russia resumed shooting. The last ceasefire that was negotiated was a partial ceasefire to allow for the evacuation of civilians from Mariupol. Russia repeatedly shelled evacuation routes despite agreeing to allow civilians to flee to safety. Of the 29 ceasefires, including the 3 formal ones, Russia has broke every single one. Ukraine was afraid of angering Western supporters, and they refrained from violating ceasefires brokered by the United States or European partners. 4 ceasefires took place during Trump's previous administration, but none of them lasted, not a single one. So I'm not entirely sure what the point of such ceasefire talks is at this juncture, because we all know, including the Kremlin, that Russia will just violate the next one. Unfortunately, it has become abundantly clear that this is not a war that will end in a ceasefire, but rather some sort of defeat or collapse by either side. Like other terrorist organizations, such as those in the Middle East, signing a ceasefire doesn't seem to mean stop shooting to Russia. Instead, it means, oh great, the other side will stop shooting so we can consolidate, reset, and start shooting again when we feel like it. Not even North Korea is that much of a two-faced weasel country.